Have you ever played a game of Commander where no matter what you did, you never had an impact on the game? And that stinks because we only have so much time to play Commander. So when we play, we want to make sure that we do the most that we can so we can have as much fun as we can. And let me tell you something, Torgaar, Famine Incarnate is a card that is always fun. Torgaar reads, as an additional cost to cast the spell, you may sacrifice any number of creatures. This spell costs 2 less to cast for each creature sacrificed this way. So in other words, you're generally just going to pay 2 black mana to cast this spell. When Torgaar Famine Incarnate enters the battlefield, up to one target player's life total becomes half the starting life total rounded down. So by turn 3 or 4, somebody at 40 life is going to have 20 life, which is a funny moment. It's usually going to make people laugh, especially if the person that you do that to thinks it's mean that you did that, and then they feel bad, and then everybody's laughing, and then it's just a good time, and it's just funny to see. So we build toxic decks on this channel. It's not too toxic, but just especially if you're nice about it. So be nice about it when you have somebody's life total, because it does make them it does sting a little bit. But how do we get Torgaar on the battlefield as quickly as possible to half somebody's life total? And we do that by playing cards similar to what we have over here. So what we're gonna look at is a Gutter Bones. And the cool thing about Gutter Bones is that we get to play Gutter Bones. Gutter Bones dies. He can go back to our hand so that we get to cast him again. So he's essentially a reusable creature. We also have creatures that enter the battlefield and create more than one creature. So this would enter and create 2 creatures. Enter and create 3 extra creatures, and so on and so forth. These cards over here, actually, when this dies, it creates another creature left. So this would die, create a creature, die, create a creature, so on and so forth. Easy to understand. When our creatures like the Gutter Bones that we talked about earlier leave the graveyard, we can also create even more creatures with cards like Tormod the Desecrator, as well as the Desecrated Tomb, to create creature tokens as our creatures leaving the graveyard. Because as you can see, we have a ton of creatures inside this deck that we get to take out of the graveyard and reuse over and over again. Now, because our creatures are technically reusable, we don't really care if these creatures die. So in order for us to gain an advantage earlier on in the game, we add a ton of cards that force everyone to sacrifice a creature. Cards like Fleshbag Marauder, Gravelighter, Demon's Disciple, Plague Crafter all feel amazing to play on turn 2 or turn 3, depending on if you ramped the Soul Ring or not. And a lot of people are able to get their commanders on the battlefield early, but when the commander is the only thing they have on the battlefield, and you cast one of these spells, you don't care that you're sacrificing these creatures because you're just going to end up getting that creature back anyway. But most importantly, your opponent is going to lose very important creatures, and it feels really bad for them, and it feels super amazing for you. Just like how amazing it would feel if you joined my live stream on Twitch, or you can hang out with everybody in the community in the Discord as well. I haven't gone live on Twitch yet. We have about 51 or 52 followers on Twitch. I'm feeling kind of shy, so I would appreciate if you let me know that you want me to go live on Twitch so we can build commander decks, play 1v1 games of Commander on there where everybody can just talk and have fun and hang out. So just let me know if you want to be a part of that. The link to the Twitch is in the description below. But while we're sacrificing our creatures, we need to benefit off of those things as well. So we're going to be playing cards like Erebos, Bleak-Hearted, which is an indestructible enchantment god that allows us to pay 2 life whenever creature we control dies, and then we draw a card. But keep a note here, it says whenever another creature, it doesn't say non-token creature, it's any creature, which feels amazing because anytime something gets sacrificed, we get to do that. And keep in mind, guys, we do have to pay 2 life, but Torgaar does have the ability to make somebody's life total 20, which means that if I'm at 2 life, I can cast Torgaar to gain 18 life as well. This does go both ways, no diddy. Next card that we have over here is the Morbid Opportunist, who also draws us cards when creatures die. Midnight Reaper doing the same thing. Ghoulish Procession is going to create more tokens for us so that we get to sacrifice them. More creatures as creatures die. Sifter of Skulls. And just to be a nice guy, I put only one Grave Pact type effect inside the deck, which is the Butcher of Malakir. But if I'm going to go out and play this deck against a bunch of really good players, I'll add the Grave Pact. I'll add a Dictate of Erebos so that I can add maximum tiers and toxicity to the deck, which is fun. Now, while all those creatures are being sacrificed, we're drawing cards, forcing our opponent to sack creatures. What we can do is put these cards into play. Imagining that we had Torgaar on the battlefield, somebody's life total dropped down to 20. We got multiple players to that point. We can play cards like Zulaport Cutthroat to start dwindling down their life total, because we're just going to continue to sacrifice our creatures, so they might as well lose a life as that is happening. Marionette Apprentice is a fantastic card inside this deck. Creates a token and it deals damage to our opponents. This card's just super good. And then we have Bastion of Remembrance, which does the same thing. Creates a token, deals damage. And then the Falkenrath Noble, which also deals damage and feels amazing. And then we also have this pile of cards over here that I think are just generically good inside this deck. The Rottenmouth Viper basically acts just like Torgaar, not literally with the life total thing, but we get to pay it for cheaper. I can cast this for 1 black mana if I want to. And then as it enters, each opponent is going to either lose 4 life unless they sacrifice a land permanent or discard a card. So it's really good at just forcing our opponents to lose resources or lose life. And the more this creature stays on the battlefield and the longer it attacks, the more devastating it becomes. So, because every time it attacks, I should say, you put a blight counter on it, and then this ability triggers for each time it attacks after that point, which is devastating. And then we have the Disciple of Bolas, which says, enters, you sack a creature, gain that much life, and draw that many cards. When we target Torgaar with this, Torgaar has 7 power, so we would essentially gain 7 life and draw 7 cards, which is amazing. And then we have Morbid Curiosity, which says, at additional cost, sacrifice an artifact or creature. Draw cards equal to the converted mana cost of the sacrifice permanent. Torgaar famously is not 2 mana, he is 8 mana. So we would draw 8 cards by sacrificing Torgaar, which feels amazing. And then a Ruthless Technomancer, we sacrifice a creature and create treasure tokens equal to its power, which means that we would create 7 treasure tokens for 4 mana, which feels fantastic. And we do have the ability to reanimate creatures. I have reanimated creatures with this card to win games in the past, like a Zulaport Cutthroat or something, which would feel really good. That's not a creature, famously. Like, I could reanimate Marionette Apprentice with this card to just start sacking things to win the game at the end of the game. That does happen. This card is not bad inside this deck. And before I forget, let me show you this inside the deck. Keep in mind that we can sacrifice Torgaar, and in response to before we sacrifice Torgaar, we cast an Undying Evil, or a card that allows Torgaar to re-enter the battlefield so that we can give him Undying. So essentially what happens is we sacrifice Torgaar, he would go to the command zone, but because we cast this previously, he would re-enter the battlefield, and then we'll make another opponent's life total 20. So we can make different people's life totals 20 multiple times in one turn. A lot of people play a card called Wound Reflection, which is basically a 2-card combo where if they're at 40 life, if they drop down to 20, it says they lose the amount of life that they lost that turn, which means that they would lose another 20 life, which would put them at 0, which essentially one-shots people. But more often than not, because we're playing cards like this, they're not really gonna be at 20 when you make the life total 20, which would still put them at like 1 life. But I find this deck actually plays very fast because the mana curve is very low. Things happen so quickly when you play this deck that you don't really have time to get to 6 mana to cast a Wound Reflection to do something, because everything else was just functioning so efficiently up to that point. So the deck list is in the description below. Let me know by saying yes or no in the comment section below, and tell me why you choose to either build this deck or not to build this deck. Like I said earlier, we do go live on Twitch building decks just like this. You guys can also challenge me when I'm live so that we can play games of 1v1 Commander and just have a ton of fun. Here's a little preview of the little set that I have set up so that when we do play games of 1v1 Commander, it would look something like this. And then I would take that video and then just put that onto the channel so that you guys can see your games on the channel and everybody can just laugh and have a good time, okay? Always remember, everybody, eat healthy, okay? Work out every single day. Most important, you guys got to remember to believe in yourself. All right, people, peace out. And before we go, like, I do work as a hypnotherapist, a life coach, and a personal trainer outside of YouTube, and I come across some information that's really helping my clients, and I think is really good information for you all to learn, where what doctors are finding is that in order to lose weight, because a lot of my clients want to lose weight, if you restrict the amount of fat that you consume every day, it actually allows your body fat to decrease and stabilize your blood sugar. So we have a lot of people in this country that struggle maintaining healthy blood sugar levels. And what they found is that when people consume a lot of fats enter cells, and cells can only hold so much fat within the cell. So once the cell becomes overloaded with adipose, it puts it, the adipose means fat, it puts it in a place where it can no longer contain any other material. So if you eat sugar when your cells are overloaded with fat, the sugar enters your blood and tries to get into the cell, and the cell actually rejects the sugar. It doesn't allow it to enter the cell, which means that inside of your blood, you're gonna have elevated blood sugar levels because the cells are constricting or restricting the processing of that sugar. So a lot of people look at diabetes like it's a sugar problem when it's actually an abundance of fat problem. So if inside your diet, you look at how much fat you're consuming, and you don't have to count all your protein and all your sugars or carbs, just look at the amount of grams of fat you're consuming every single day. And I've seen doctors recommend that you consume no more than 30 grams of fat. For people that want to get shredded abs, that want their stomachs to show, they would say no more than 10 grams of fat, which is a bit extreme. That's a very low number, and do what you're comfortable with. But by restricting the amount of fat, you force your body to utilize the fat that it has. And if you spend 15-20 minutes on a treadmill, put the incline to 15, set the speed to about 2.5 to 2.8, you put yourself in a position where you're burning energy slowly, slow enough for your body to turn energy out of fat so that you can start to reduce your belly fat or your body fat percentage. And at the same time, while you're consuming a lower level of fat, you're consuming more proteins and more carbs, which gives you, or the sugar, which give you the energy to perform the exercise. Dude, in 3, 4, 5, 6 months, I've seen people drop tons of weight. And it's, to me, it's really cool because it also helps people reverse diabetes in a sense. So this is an extremely powerful thing. So if you know people that are suffering from diabetes, definitely, there's a book called Mastering Diabetes that's written by a doctor who graduated from Cal University. He also went to school in Stanford. And that's a ton of information right there that you guys can use to help to make your life healthier, okay? Peace out, everybody.